Well, good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch. I'm out here having my morning coffee. I'm going to puff on my cigar and have a little talk with you about cholesterol today. I titled this video, or at least I intend to title this video, "Are you worried about your high cholesterol?" And I think that's a pretty safe assumption among most carnivores. Maybe not so much keto people, because we've learned from some of Nick Norwitz's efforts that just eating a ton of sugar actually lowers your cholesterol, which is probably why so many of these grains, the cereals, the Cheerios, going along with all the misconceptions and phony conclusions that cholesterol is indeed bad for you, they can brag about it on their cereal boxes and call it heart healthy. Heart healthy. I wonder myself why people who eat breakfast cereal are getting heart disease and having heart attacks. How can that be? How can that be? They'll explain it by saying, well, they're probably eating a little red meat on the side and it's negating all the wonderful effects of the cholesterol-lowering, heart-healthy, seed oil-laden, sugar-filled crap that we're putting out there as food. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You can see John Lovitz going, yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, folks. Logic and common sense and reality have indeed left the building. Excuse me while I light my cigar with a little enlightening and happy music to put a smile on my face. Ah, there we go. Should you worry about your high cholesterol? I've been asking myself that question almost my whole life. I mean, cholesterol became a thing about the time that I was in my 30s or so. It was before the introduction of the food pyramid, before the panic, around the time Ansel Keys was doing his thing, trying to convince the world with the funding of the sugar companies that fat was the real culprit and sugar was it was just delicious and good for you. And there's no such thing as carbohydrate addiction, so how could you be so silly as to think that? It's food. Cholesterol became the boogeyman of human health. Was there any real proof that any real studies? I don't know. 40 years later, I'm still looking for one and I haven't found one. Oh, I found some studies that were very sloppily done, that were paid for by food companies and drug companies and the likes of Nestle and Pepsi-Cola, that had no scientific validity to them at all. They were basically marketing vehicles designed to try to justify an agenda of somebody trying to sell us something. But the medical organizations and their publications, also funded by these same drug companies, food companies publish these phony studies in their journals and validated them. And universities like Harvard and those esteemed Tufts universities, who had researchers with tremendous religious influences on them from the Seventh-day Adventists, being paid for and bought off, especially at Harvard, by the sugar companies, bent on convincing all of us that we need to avoid the meat and fat, and we need to eat more of that addictive sugar and the grains and the seed oils, where they can make so much friggin' money and sell us so many drugs. And that's just the reality of what happened. And it's documented and it's out there and it's evident for anybody to see today. And yet, and yet, nothing's changed. It still says heart healthy on a box of Cheerios, for God's sakes. Nothing has changed, and nothing will change. It's too deep-seated. It's become like a religion. So here we sit, here we are today, in a world where if our cholesterol is high, they may as well put black armbands on us and inter us in some camp somewhere as an inferior, sick human being who wants to do crazy shit like just eat meat and not eat any of their healthy, nutritious, delicious, addictive pseudo foods, manufactured chemical crap that is killing us off as a human race. How dare we? How dare we even think that that's not what we're supposed to be doing? But here we are. And it's a battle. And for me, after 40 years of learning the truth, I can't impart that truth to you in a short video. I can direct you to some of the resources and people that I follow that I've decided have credibility, are not agendized, are not being bought off, but are truly interested. People like Dave Feldman, Nick Norwitz, people like David Diamond and Malcolm Kendrick, people like Nina Teicholz and Gary Taubes, people like doctors like Ken Berry and Anthony Chafee, who questioned their entire education finally when they themselves became sick and fat and said, wait a minute, I'm doing what I recommend to my patients and it's not working. I am hurting people, and that's not why I signed on to be a doctor. I tell you all this from the observational standpoint of somebody who's not a doctor, who fortunately never had to sit through years and years of indoctrination in classrooms, indoctrination by drug companies, paid for by food companies, backed by religious organizations who think that eating meat causes men to masturbate. The absurdity of that, the fact that that even is true, should be enough to make any thinking human being question, why the hell do we believe that cholesterol is killing us? Surely it can't be that simple, since cholesterol has been part of the human animal and animals before humans since the beginning of life itself. How could life have survived carrying a deadly poison around, bound and determined to kill every generation? It's impossible. And yet, that simple level of logic eludes most people these days. Dumbed down. So back to the cholesterol. My LDL is 340. My HDL is over 80. My triglycerides are a little over 100. My ratio is about 1.5. So I have a good HDL to LDL ratio. I have a screaming high LDL number, which probably changes from microsecond to microsecond as my body decides what it needs that LDL to be. I have become a fat burner. I am metabolically healthy, and that's the key. I am metabolically healthy. I have a BMI of just a shade under 20. I weigh 136 pounds. I'm 5'10". I'm proud of the fact that the average American now thinks I'm too skinny. My body doesn't think I'm too skinny. I'm doing just fine. I have cured all of my medical problems. I live without pain. Very rarely, I got a cold last week, very rarely get sick. I have not eaten a gram of sugar or processed foods or plant matter for over 2 full years. By all rights, I should be a dead man walking. And yet, I'm healthier than a tiny fraction of 1% of humans my age on this planet. I think the number of people that are my age, that are as healthy as I am, that take no prescription drugs, that don't live by a doctor's advice every day, that flaunt my so-called deadly numbers in the face of these idiots every day, that have learned for myself what those numbers really mean, what lipoproteins really are, what cholesterol really is, what the job of these molecules are in the human body, how the transport mechanism that moves these things around in our bloodstream works, what the damage sugar does to every cell in our body, why the oxidative stress caused by eating these manufactured seed oils, the glycating stress of eating hundreds and hundreds of grams of sugar every day, forcing ourselves to use that as our prime energy source instead of fat like we're supposed to, observing the human race getting fatter and fatter and sicker every year, year after year. Go to a hospital. Look around at the, quote, health care workers. By and large, unless they're still in their 20s, and even some of them, they are the unhealthiest people on the planet, scurrying at 10 o'clock in the morning to the cafeteria to get their 2-hour sugar fix because they just can't live without it. The doctors who can't button their white coats anymore with the stethoscopes draped around their fat, bulging necks, sweating as they tell you, a healthy human being, that you need to be on a statin because you're killing yourself with your high cholesterol. Tell them to look in the mirror, doc, and go back to school and learn something. You may know how to write prescriptions. The drug companies have taught you well, but you know nothing about human biochemistry and physiology anymore. What little they taught you, you have long forgotten all those years ago since your first year med school. You know nothing about nutrition. You know nothing about lipid metabolism. You know nothing except what you've been taught by people that want you as a mindless robot inserted into this matrix of a medical establishment we have that just is a good boy, does what the computer tells you to do, prescribes the drugs the computer says, on to the next patient 5 minutes later. And we, as lemmings, as human sheep, line up in their waiting rooms plug ourselves into this matrix that has become the medical community and dutifully march off to the drugstore to get our prescriptions filled on our long, painful, and suffering life's journey to the nursing home, where we forget who we are and who our children are. And here we are. Here we are. Deniers, science deniers, who think that the human animal should eat a minimum of sugar and a maximum of good fat and protein. How dare we? We can't let these people get their message out. No, we need to fight this at every turn. And at the root and at the heart of all of this is you and I sitting here saying to ourselves, should I worry about my high cholesterol or not? I can't advise you on that. I'd love to advise you. I'd love to tell you what to do, but I don't know you. And there may be things about you that may make that advice not the right advice for you. So all I can tell you is how I feel about it, why I feel that way about it. And hopefully this won't take too long because it's very, very simple. In the description of this video is a link to the latest video put out that has David Diamond. And it's watch the whole thing. It may be the most important thing you've ever watched if you're worried about your cholesterol and your health and your future. But should you worry about your high cholesterol? Sorry to keep you waiting. That one thing, that one question you need to ask yourself and find the answer to is, am I metabolically healthy? That's it. That's it. That's the most important thing that you need to answer. The most important question that you need to answer for yourself, and you need to answer it accurately, and you need to find out accurately, are you metabolically healthy? What does that mean? What does it mean to be metabolically healthy? Well, let me tell you when you are not metabolically healthy, when you can't be metabolically healthy, when you can't consider yourself metabolically healthy. You're not metabolically healthy if your BMI is high, if you're overweight or obese. You are not metabolically healthy. You are not burning your body fat. You have lost the ability or have shut off your fat cells because of your metabolic syndrome, of the fact that insulin is not working for you. You are becoming, if not already, a diabetic. You are on your way to heart disease. You are on your way to mental disorders, early dementia. If you are not metabolically healthy, the human animal needs to be metabolically healthy. Metabolically healthy in order to be healthy. That is the base and root definition of health itself. At a metabolic level, at the level of every cell, every mitochondria doing its job, producing the energy, of the fat being transported through the blood, being used as a primary fuel source, of sugar being limited or eliminated from our diet, because it's only works because it served as an emergency survival fuel, not the default fuel. If you are a sugar burner, overweight, either pre or diabetic, you are not metabolically healthy. And yes, a high cholesterol could be very bad for you. Well, how come if I'm metabolically not healthy, my high cholesterol is bad, where you, Mitch, who are incredibly, evidently metabolically healthy, at 136 pounds, 77 years old, taking no drugs, with a BMI of 20, with a body fat percentage of around 14%, which is plenty of body fat, who have cured all your illnesses, how come your LDL is okay, but mine isn't? And David Diamond talks about that and shows laboratory and study results that prove it. Real stuff, non-biased studies, not agendized studies, but real studies that show that in metabolically unhealthy people who have high cholesterol, their cholesterol is damaged. It is not healthy cholesterol. It is damaged. It is oxidized. It is glycated. It has shrunk into small, dense SD LDL. And it is these small, dense cholesterol particles in huge numbers that cannot be cleaned up by HDL. These people have extremely low amounts of HDL. They are metabolically sick. Their triglycerides are through the roof. And yes, in these people, according to these studies, statins have actually shown a benefit for these people, lowering their cholesterol levels, their LDL levels, has had some benefit. What is it about the statins that cause these benefits? Is it an anti-inflammatory effect? There are other things that statins do besides just lower the number, the LDL number. And we still don't know whether it's those, quote, effects of a statin that actually do help. So you say to yourself, well, why not every fat person on the planet take a statin? Well, the reason is the side effects can kill you. It's not worth the risk. The small benefit that some of these people get from it is not worth the risk of doubling your risk of diabetes, which is the biggest risk for heart disease. So while, yes, maybe some people who do take these statins see some benefits, they are doing so at great peril to themselves because of the side effects, which affect about 30% of the people who take them. The muscle damage, the increased risk of diabetes. So yes, there may be a case to be made. And yes, there are some cardiologists that are reputable, like Nadir Ali, who for a very few of his patients actually do prescribe a statin, but monitor them very closely for the side effects. For the rest of us, the only answer is not to try to lower your LDL. The answer is to try to increase your metabolic health. That is the answer. That is the reason that we do carnivore. That is the reason why it's so important to stop eating the sugars, stop eating the seed oils, stop eating the plants, to eat the meat and the fat, to lose the weight, to reverse the diabetes, to rebuild your brain with the proper building materials of fat and cholesterol, to reduce the risk of dementia. So the question you need to ask yourself, yes, I have high cholesterol. Yes, my doctors are telling me that I need to take a statin and that's going to cause all my problems. I need to take Ozempic to lose weight. I need to do all this other stuff and fix myself. No, the answer is not in another drug or a pill bottle. The answer is in your own programming and chemistry. Eat the foods you're supposed to eat. Reverse your metabolic syndrome. Reverse your insulin resistance. Normalize all the hormonal levels in your body, including and especially insulin. Let your fat cells open up. Let your body become a fat burner again. Everything will fix itself if you let your body and your own inherent genetic knowledge gained over hundreds of millions of years of trial and error. Let it do its job. Stop trying to micromanage it. Just eat the right food. Don't worry about your ketones. Don't worry about shit. Eat the right food. Period. End of story. It's all that you can do consciously, you have to let your inert programming and intelligence do its job. Eat the meat, avoid the sugar and the seed oils, and give it time. There is no 30-day fix for your body. It took decades for you to get in the shape you're in. It will take years to completely fix you, if that's even possible, and you haven't damaged yourself beyond the point of repair. But it's the best shot that you have. Ignore the blood test numbers. They're all over the place because you are not metabolically healthy. They will find the right levels for you if you let your machinery just do its job. The entire medical community would be doing the human race a favor if they handed every patient that walked out of their office a prescription to eat meat. Never happened, but it would be a beautiful thing. Now the only problem we have to figure out is where are we going to get all this friggin' meat that people are going to start eating all of a sudden because they've come to their senses. Well, that's impossible and that'll never happen. So the reality of it is we need to look out for ourselves. I need to keep making these videos to try to help you understand this stuff, because there's no way I'm ever going to fix the human race, nor are any of us. No matter what we think we're doing, it's too far gone. That's just a sad fact. So my prescription to you today as a non-doctor, as a bald-headed 77-year-old fart sitting here smoking cigars and pontificating on YouTube, my prescription for you today is very simply, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.